yes, we can get started. Sorry, I'm Steve now. It's
2 o'clock.
So it's time to start our program. I'm going to mute everyone. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Julia will answer them at the end. If you are supposed to speak and I mute you, please unmute yourself. And if you have any questions, I said that already, put them in the chat. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ilana. You're a wonderful Steve. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Ashkelon. Ilana, oh, you disappeared. Okay.
I'm just opening the window, so I'm just...
Okay, don't worry. Do your things. Okay. So welcome, everybody. I don't think I should introduce myself. You probably all know me for about 2-something years now. And as usual, I'm very excited to be with you tonight. I just came back about an hour ago from a real physical tour of the Sea of Galilee, and you can't imagine how many people, how many tourists are currently in Israel. It's crazy. It's getting more and more impossible, and the lines, especially in the churches, are just amazing. I mean, speaking of COVID, thank God this is behind us. I hope given the the results of the elections, which are not yet final, but we do know more or less what type of government we will have. So I really hope that tourism will remain good as it is. And so I will start sharing my screen, and now behind me you can see already one of these spots in ancient Ashkelon, in the National Park of Ashkelon, which we will be visiting now. But you can already see that Ashkelon is by the sea. That was also part of the name of this presentation. And you can see some ruins. So let's get there. Okay, guys, just double checking. Ashkelon by the sea. Can you see it? All right. So I'm Julia Newman, and this is a pay as you wish presentation. And here we are, Ashkelon by the sea, the forgotten glory. And I love Ashkelon. It's pretty indeed. So Ashkelon is primarily a modern city, and as I told you before, like 2 weeks ago when I was talking about this presentation, I told you probably none of you ever been to Ashkelon, and then we found out that somebody was there, but just occasionally because she had something to do or she stayed somewhere nearby, I'm not sure. And yes, indeed, I mean, if you don't have any friends or relatives or a job in Ashkelon, you don't visit, and this is a pity. So here I am to introduce Ashkelon and to prove that it is attractive for modern reasons and ancient reasons alike. So you know me, and you know that I love this linguistics, the connection between the words and what these words mean, assuming you speak Hebrew. So just before we get into the names, the location. Ashkelon is located, as you can see on my screen, if this is Tel Aviv, okay, the very center of everything by the Mediterranean beach. So Ashkelon is located about 37 miles south of Tel Aviv. That's it. I mean, with no traffic, you can make it in less than an hour. I mean, usually there is traffic, so it does take longer, but it's really, well, Israel is a small country. 37 miles south of Tel Aviv, and only about 5 miles north of Gaza Strip. There are other communities which are smaller, which are closer to Gaza Strip. Actually, one of them, and this one you might have been visiting before, a community called Nativa Asara. It's located right on the Gaza border. I mean, it actually shares a fence with the Gaza border. But speaking of a city with a population of about 150,000 people, this is the closest one to Ashkelon, to Gaza Strip, and therefore, of course, it belongs to the Gaza Strip envelope, and it was suffering for years and years from bombing from Gaza. Now, we will be back to the name Ashkelon, but before we talk about the name Ashkelon, which of course means something, the whole coastal plain, which is between Gaza, actually it used to include Gaza, but today, since the disengagement was sort of, we consider Gaza being totally different thing. But historically, this coastal plain, all the way, including Gaza Strip, all the way down south to Egypt, all the way through Ashkelon and Ashdod. Okay, up here, this is Ashdod. This is a major modern port. This part of the coastal plain used to be called Pleshet. And if you look at Israeli maps today, so you can see this name, Pleshet. Now, where does it come from? The word Pleshet comes from the word Plishtim. Okay, Plishtim obviously are the Philistines. I mean, in the English translation of the Bible, we keep reading about the Philistines and how they were fighting against the tribes of Israel. And we know that Goliath was a Philistine. We know the Philistines. But the Philistines is actually not the correct name. The correct way, according to the Hebrew Bible, is Plishtim. Now, why is it so important? Because the word Plishtim has a meaning. Okay, what does it mean? Plishtim literally means the invaders, those who invade. So these Plishtim are the people who came from somewhere, from outside, and invaded this land. So we're not talking about one group of people. We're not talking about same genetics. We're talking about a bunch of people who invaded the land. So we have different theories, and we know that they came with a few waves and different tribes, and they probably, most of them originated in the Greek islands. But anyway, the Bible refers to them as the invaders. Now, these Plishtim, the name Plishtim later was transformed into Palestine, and Palestine is a very well-known term. Okay, no politics whatsoever, but the land of Israel used to be called Palestine, named after the Plishtim, named after the Philistines, by Herodotus, by the Greek historian in the 5th century BCE. And then it was used by the Romans, and then it was reused by the British, and today we have politics, but no politics. But just funny, the geographical area, the Pleshet from Plishtim, became Palestine. If you haven't been to the Israel Museum, the archaeological part of the Israel Museum, so right at the entrance, actually before you enter the archaeological section, you see this nice display of coffins, the anthropoid coffins, which were found in Deir el-Balach. Deir el-Balach is the northern part of the Gaza Strip, and they pretty much look like humans, so they're called the anthropoid. And these coffins used to be used by the Philistines. Ashkelon is mentioned together with Gaza and Ashdod and Ekron and Gat as one of the 5 major Philistine cities. And this is where in Ashkelon, Samson struck down the 30 Philistines and took their clothing in order to pay the 30 companions who had solved the riddle he had proposed at his wedding feast. What an unpleasant biblical story. Just before we enter Ashkelon, well, I say again, this is the map of the area. Coming from the north, as we did, you drive down road number 4, and then you turn right in order to get into modern Ashkelon, and then finally into Ashkelon National Park, which is our main destination today, again, because I love history and archaeology and already have the definition behind me. But, just before we get there, we drive by a shopping mall, big open-air shopping mall, which is called Chutzot Ashkelon. Now, why do I mention that? Because David, when he was crying over the death of Saul and Jonathan, after they died in the battle against the Philistines on Mount Gilboa, you see, in the English version of the Bible, it says, tell it not in Gat, again, one of the cities of the Philistines, proclaim it not in the streets of Ashkelon. Now, this is wrong. This is lost in translation, because in Hebrew Bible, it says, proclaim it not in the chutzot of Ashkelon. Now, what is chutzot? Chutzot comes from the word chutz, outside. So chutzot are the outsides of Ashkelon. So do not tell that in these outside. What do you do outside of the city? Well, you do shopping. And so today in modern Israel, we have outdoor shopping malls just outside of the cities. So we have Chutzot Ashkelon here, and we have Chutzot Shfaim, and we have Chutzot Alonim, and we have other Chutzot. And the advantage of having the Chutzot today is that you can park your car and you can have the shopping mall open on Shabbat because it's outside of the city. So the municipality will not be forced the Shabbat rules. You see? So this is the connection between biblical history and modern shopping. By the way, it's a really nice shopping mall. So we keep driving. We pass the, this, okay. We pass Barzilai. Barzilai is a hospital, which is the southmost hospital along the coastal plain. It's the closest one to Gaza, and again, it's very important during the uprisals in Gaza in operations. But the reason why I take you, well, virtually, I take you to the hospital is because inside the premises of the hospital, just in the garden, you can see this structure. You see this white structure. I hope you can already see my slide. Do you see this is a pretty white wall surrounding an empty something? Do you see what I'm talking about, guys? Yeah? Okay. So this place is identified by the Muslims, or at least some of them, by the Shiite denomination of the Muslims, as being a temporary burial site of the head of Hussein ibn Ali. Now that sounds a bit difficult. So to make the long story short, Muhammad, okay, we don't need to introduce him. Muhammad had a daughter. Her name was Fatima. Fatima had a son whose name was Ali. And he had a son whose name was Hussein. The bottom line, Hussein was the grandson of Muhammad, and he was killed in a battle near Karbala, which is in present-day Iraq. And he was assassinated even though he was the closest living relative of Muhammad, the prophet, the founder of Islam. And ever since, the descendants of the followers of Hussein ibn Ali, they call themselves the Shia. They call themselves the fraction which supported the true descendant. And ever since, every year they have this horrible, terrible celebration. That's what they call it, the Ashura, when they beat up themselves to blood because they were not there at the time to save Hussein ibn Ali. So Hussein ibn Ali was assassinated. He lost his head, and his head was buried in a few places. And at some point in history, it found itself right here in Ashkelon. So it was buried here. Later it was moved elsewhere, but the place remained holy. And before 1950, there was a beautiful, Muslim-oriented tomb with a dome to it. And then in 1950, Moshe Dayan, again, we all know that name, Moshe Dayan, commanded to destroy this monument. So, Muslims will be less attracted to visiting Ashkelon. Later, this white walled structure was built, and it is a holy place. Very few Muslims will come and visit, especially because we don't have any Shiite Muslims in Israel, but here it is in the hospital, a holy place for the Shiites. So before we actually start touring, we must refer to the name. So the name is Ashkelon, okay? Sometimes it's spelled with a K, sometimes it's spelled with a Q, okay? It depends. In Hebrew, it will be the same, Ashkelon. So the word Ashkelon apparently comes from the word shekel. Okay, you all know what shekel is, right? This is the currency, this is the biblical currency, this is the modern currency. And shekel, the word shekel comes from the word shkila. Shkila is waning. Okay, so if there's something which you have to wait, it means that there's a lot of trade, right? It makes sense. So Ashkelon is a major commercial, economical center. Why? Because of the port and because of the abundance of water. That we will be back to it. So the very name Ashkelon has to do with prosperity, with trade. In the same time, and we don't have an explanation to that, but you see that we have the shekel, right? But we also have the Aleph Shin, the first two letters, and Aleph Shin is Esh. Esh means a fire. So we have Ashkelon with a fire. We have Ashdod with a fire. Maybe it had something to do with pagan worship, maybe sacrifices. We don't know. Okay, but the fact is that these two ancient Philistine cities both have fire in their names. And I guess you're familiar with these little delicious onions called scallion or shallot in French. So scallion is actually totally misspelled name of Ashkelon, because originally this little delicious onions came from Ashkelon. They were grown in Ashkelon, and then they would be sent all over the world from that port of Ashkelon. So next time you have an onion, please think of Ashkelon. Ashkelon is a white city of palms and olives. Tel Aviv is always, often referred to as the white city, and this is what it was named by the journalists, and then it was adopted by UNESCO. And Tel Aviv is declared a UNESCO heritage site by the name the White City because of the abundance of the Bauhaus architecture. But in reality, there's much more white in Ashkelon rather than in Tel Aviv. They have lots of palms, but this is typical to, generally speaking, Israel. But Ashkelon did something I never saw before in any other city, and that's planting olive trees. You see here on the right, just planting olive trees all over the city, and especially in this separations in between the two sides of the road. And the olive trees are big and tall and beautiful, and there's so much fruit, and you can just, you park your car, you harvest some olives, and you go home or drive elsewhere. So I think it's a great idea. Another thing which is special about Ashkelon, modern Ashkelon, are the roundabouts. I don't know who and why, but somebody in the city hall loves roundabouts. I know, we love roundabouts in Israel. We have lots of them, but in Ashkelon, it's something real special. The roundabouts are very big, and all of them have this beautiful statues. They're beautifully decorated. So here, I hope you can see the birds. And then there is another statue which has, I'm not sure, it looks like a whale's tail maybe, and some white birds, or maybe these are fish. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's real pretty with lots of flowers. And then this is the biggest roundabout we saw on the right. It is so big that it's even difficult to see what is in the middle. So here I zoomed it. Do you see this smiling whale? Yes? Guys, do you see the smiling whale? Please help me. David? Thank you. I need your support. Okay,
yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this is the smiling whale, and here, well, that looked like a ship which could have belonged to the Vikings, maybe, or I don't know, maybe somebody thought that this is what a Philistine ship used to look like. But anyway, it's big, it's pretty and colorful, and little by little, one roundabout after the other, and eventually we get to Ashkelon National Park. So this is what it says here in Hebrew. And, in most cases, when you reach a national park in Israel, so you will have the sign in Hebrew, and there will be also an English translation. But it's quite typical, there's so few people and like no tourists visit National Park of Ashkelon, so they didn't even bother to put the English translation. So I did this for you. So this is the Ashkelon National Park, which is also known as Tel Ashkelon National Park. As you probably know, Tel means an archaeological site, an archaeological hill. So as soon as we see Tel, we know that we are looking at quite a few layers of civilization and a lot of history. So we get into the park, and then we will start driving. I mean, we wish we could drive towards the sea. I mean, this is the prettiest, and it's also logical in terms of history, because the most ancient fractions are to be seen in this part. I don't know why, but they made it the other way around. So now we have to drive the other way. But since we're doing it virtually, so we will start from, I think we should start. So we will be visiting this upper part next to the entrance, and then some water wells around here, and the basilica, of course. And then we will we will take a look from down here, and down there used to be the mighty port of Ashkelon, the source of its wealth. Nothing remained. I mean, we do have a modern marina in Ashkelon, but the big and commercial port is a bit north in Ashdod. So we start driving inside the park, and I don't know, but it looks very much like a safari. There is a safari park in Ramat Gan. I don't know if you've ever been there, but there is a safari park in Ramat Gan. And this is where, you start driving in, you look for the zebras, and, well, not leopards, it's too dangerous, zebras and rhinos and a gnu. And so anyway, we started driving. I was like, hey, where's the zebra? Where's the leopard? And then we looked carefully, and we did not find a leopard, but we did find a very small panthera. Did you see this little black cat? Okay, well, it is a cat, but we imagine that we are looking at a black leopard. So it was right there in the safari. And then you drive a few more minutes, and then we made it to here. Now, I promise you that in Ashkelon, we will see the most ancient arched city gate in the world, at least ever found. I mean, in Dan, in the ancient biblical city of Dan, which is up north, right by the border with Lebanon, there is an ancient arch, which is associated with Abraham. I mean, maybe even Abraham walked through that gate up north in Dan. The gate in Ashkelon has nothing to do with Abraham as far as we know, but this gate here is 50 years or so older than the one in Dan, which makes it the most ancient arch gate in the world. And it is it's dated to 1850 BCE, meaning almost 4,000 years ago, which is incredible. So here we are. Here you can see Noam, of course, Noam, my son, who is the model of how to enter the city. So here he is standing in front of the gate. Now you can see that the gate was restored. Okay, here you can clearly see that the upper part is artificial. I mean, modern artificial. But the rest of it on both sides of him, this is the original Canaanite period wall and the Canaanite period gate. And this is how people and travelers and carts will enter Ashkelon. So now we and Noam are standing outside, and now we are about to follow him into the walled city of 4,000 years ago. Okay, so he didn't really want to do it, but I really asked him to do it. So here he is walking, and we will be following him. Hey guys, I don't know if it's just me. I mean, Noah was clearly not excited about this place, but I hope, I mean, maybe just too young to be excited, but I hope that you do feel that there is something amazing. There's something incredible in walking into a gate, into the wall, which is that ancient. I mean, these bricks, they were facing the biblical events. So since I was so excited, I took a few photos of these bricks. You see that the lower part, I mean, I hope you can see it. The lower part is made of local beach rock made stones. So, the beach rock is the most typical rock for the coastal plain. And it's relatively soft, but we're talking about stones. But the upper part is actually just not even clay. I mean, it's just, you take dirt, you mix it with straw, you make soft bricks, you put it to dry outside in the sun, and that's it. And this is your wall. And what you see here are these dry dirt bricks which survived 4,000 years. I mean, the reason why they survived is because the city was ruined and abandoned for a long period of time. And when it was restored, the wall and these bricks were already covered. When they were discovered and excavated by the archaeologists about less than 100 years ago, so they were well protected, and you can see the plastic roof above them. So they made it. And here I am touching, just touching this ancient walls. So once again, I'm totally excited, and our feet are standing at the gate Ashkelon, and now we are standing inside the city. Okay, unfortunately, almost nothing survived inside, but you see once again the restored gate, and now we are in the city. So since very little survived, so I wanted you, I mean, all these photos were taken from the website of the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, and these are just a few of the beautiful finds which were made in Ashkelon. Here you can see probably an Egyptian goddess. It's a tiny little metal object, and here we see another little probably goddess, and a metal beautifully decorated vessel which might have been used for perfume or maybe some precious spices. All that belongs to the first Temple period. And in 604 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar, the same Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king who conquered Judea and ruined the first temple, and the people of Israel were taken into the Babylonian exile by him. He was the one who arrived to Ashkelon and ruined the city, which was abandoned for a while. And then it was repopulated, and almost 3,000 years later than the gate we saw now, in the early Arab period, the wall was rehabilitated. The gate itself remained covered. Apparently they didn't even know that there is a gate. And then the wall was recovered by stone made and what you call it, it's not straightforward, but it has a slope. And that was the wall which protected the city from the Crusaders by the Muslims, but the Crusaders made it into the city. I mean, it took them 50 years to take over Ashkelon. It was the most fortified city, but eventually they made it inside, and now we have only fractions of this wall surviving. The idea of that wall is to make it more difficult to break into the wall, so the battering ram will not be able to make it just to ruin the wall, because it will be so thick. And at the same time, it's very difficult to climb this wall. Here you can see no one trying to climb, because I explained why they made the wall, so he wanted to make sure that I'm telling him the truth. So he proved that you cannot climb it. One of the most famous, the greatest geographers of all times of the Muslim period, from the same period of time when this wall was built, he describes Ashkelon as an important city, of course, and he describes the sycamore trees, which are excellent in size. It's a marvelous city and pleasant. So speaking of the sycamore trees, I mean, as you can see right behind me here and behind Noam, these are huge, enormous, beautiful sycamore trees. If you've been to Tel Aviv, so you might recall the big and beautiful sycamore trees along Ben Gurion Boulevard. But in Ashkelon, it is just amazing. In Tel Aviv, the sycamore trees were irrigated for many years. In Ashkelon, they were not irrigated for, hundreds of years. And they have such big and beautiful fruits, sycamore fruits. So there must be an explanation to it. I mean, I told you already that Ashkelon is prosperous, but it's not just because of the port, but it's also because the abundance of the aquifer water. Over 60 Antilia wells of the Ottoman period were identified in the premises of the national park. Antilia well is an Ottoman period invention. When you take better a camel, you can take a donkey if you have none, so you can do it yourself. But here on this photo, you can see a camel, okay? And the camel is attached to a wooden stick, which rotates a cogwheel, which is attached to another cogwheel, which is attached to a long structure of usually thick rocks, which will have either buckets or clay vessels attached to them, and the whole thing will go into the deep well. So even though Ashkelon is right by the sea, which is great for it, it also has a very high and very abundant aquifer water, and that contributed to the prosperity of the city. Here you can see a reconstructed Antilia well in Rehovot. And as I told you, if you don't have a donkey or a camel, so you can take your son, and then he will be getting the water for you. So another proof to the abundance of the aquifer water, to fresh water. You see this photo, it looks like a jungle. And it was taken right there a few meters away from the beach. So you would expect everything to be salty and sort of wasteland, but on the contrary, it is very green and lush and welcoming. The beautiful Mediterranean Sea of Good, which you see here, the vessels. One of them is a military one. I don't think it's possible to identify on the photo, but in reality, we consider one of them is a military one, which is not surprising. Again, given the fact that we're 7 miles away from Gaza Strip. And the other one is a coal vessel which brought coal to this power plant, which looks very much similar to the one in Hadera, not far from Caesarea, not far away from where I live. And this is the power plant which produces electricity for the entire Gaza Strip envelope, and this is one of the main targets for missiles from Gaza. Well, thank God it never suffered. Sorry. There was never a missile hitting it. Now, down below on the beach, it's very difficult, I know, but this is where the prosperous port of Ashkelon used to be, because in the ancient times, they would leave the ship in the sea as close as possible to the beach. They would put an anchor so the ship will not float away. And then on the beach, they would only have facilities for fixing the ship and to park the small boat, which would bring the goods from the big ship in the sea to the beach. So this nothing we see on the beach here are the very few remains of the big and mighty Ashkelon port, which was used by everybody, but among others, it was used by the Nabateans who brought the incenses, the spices, the perfume all the way from South Saudi Arabia via Petra and the spice route and all the way to the port of Ashkelon and a part of Gaza and Alexandria. So 2 weeks ago, we were virtually touring together in Petra. So the goods from Petra, among other ports, would make it to here. And this is what the marina of Ashkelon looks like today. Much more about eating and shopping and just having a good time rather than trade. The trade is in Ashdod, and here it's just a bit of fishermen and some private boats and private yachts. But it's a really pretty place to have a fish and a beer, just like the port of Tel Aviv. We'll not forget the Jewish presence in Ashkelon. And here you can see a marble plate with a menorah. Okay, this is definitely a menorah, and a shofar on the right and a lulav on the left. So we are looking at the most typical Jewish symbols, which were found in the archaeological excavations of Ashkelon. And still inside the national park, we can see the ruins of the Roman period basilica with so many Roman period coins found inside, dozens of Roman period coins. The contrast, again, this is the same photo you see behind me. I really love this contrast because you see this, this ruin. You see that wall, which probably belongs to the Crusader period fortifications of Ashkelon. And then you look through it and you can see a modern ship, which is, it's not military, it's probably either brings coal or maybe a fisherman, I'm not sure, but something so modern and so ancient, and the sea is so blue and so welcoming, and the sun is shining, and this place is just beautiful, and there's nobody there. I mean, it was me and Noam and a black cat, and that's it, and the girl who sold us the entrance tickets. So you should go there. A statue of Isis was found in the Roman Basilica. You can see the photo of the statue here on the left, and then you can see the so-called, on this picture, you can see the so-called knot of Isis. Isis was, it was very surprising for the archaeologists to find her here, because we're looking at the Roman period basilica, while Isis, she is an ancient Egyptian goddess, which, you know, it's typical and it's surprising at the same time, because you would expect, Romans, they have their own god, they have their own mythology. Why would they have an ancient Egyptian goddess in their basilica? Well, the answer probably is because they were not monotheists. So they probably assumed, well, we have so many gods, and the Egyptians have other gods, so maybe we should adopt them. I mean, maybe these gods can help us as well. Maybe we can make a combination. And truly, when you look at the Roman mythology, you see that it's actually Greek mythology being adopted and altered in a way. Anyway, I think if you are not a monotheist, so it's so much easier for you to adopt other gods and pray to them as well, and maybe these guys can do better. So anyway, here she is, Isis, the ancient, very ancient Egyptian goddess in the Roman basilica in the Israeli city of Ashkelon. Well, the most important in Ashkelon, of course, is the beach. They have beautiful white beaches, and it's winter time. It's funny. Just have to share. 2 days ago, I was in Jericho with a German family, and Jericho, which is where I'm going with a VFI people 2 days from today. So Jericho is one of the warmest places on earth, right by the Dead Sea, the lowest and almost the warmest. So anyway, it's winter time, and here I was in Jericho with the German family, and it was nice and pleasant, cool and pleasant for Jericho. And then we were driving by a water park, and the water park is not functioning now because it's winter time. And then the girl saw the water park, and she was like, "Hey, why is it closed?" And I said, "Because it's winter time." And she was, "What? Can it be warmer than now?" So of course, it's pretty cool. I mean, it is not warm at all. And she was shocked. She said, "Well, I've never experienced such heat before." So Ashkelon is not as hot as Jericho, but it is warm enough. So even though it's winter time, you can see this family getting ready to get in the water, which is the right thing to do. So back to the Roman Basilica, more pillars and mosaics, of course, pretty simple mosaics. And this is the best part of it. You see these sculptures, which were found just thrown away inside the ruined basilica, and they're so beautiful, they're so gentle. This statue, it's a bit difficult to see what it is, but if you look carefully, you see that there is a head and there is a mighty figure of a man, and that man is standing, on his knees. He's carrying something very, very heavy. Here you see this heavy, like, ball or basketball. Do you know what mythology this is? Can you identify? Okay. This is Atlantis. This is the mighty Titan Atlantis, who was left to hold the world on his shoulders. And this is what he's doing. So again, we have the Greek mythology with the Roman basilica. We have a beautifully decorated capital of a pillar. And down here, okay, when you look at this carefully, this is a base of a pillar. The pillar is not here, but do you see the shape of that base? It's perfect heart. That heart has nothing to do with love, of course. In the Roman world, this shape of a heart did not mean love. Actually, if anybody knows when and why this shape was adopted as heart, which means love, I would love to know, because nobody I ever asked knows. But we have so many specialists here together. So if anybody knows how did the heart became heart, I would love to get an answer. Okay, but anyway, we do find these heart-shaped bases in many Roman period structures, and it was simply used in the corners because then you can place two pillars on one base, one on one half and the other one on the other half, and that's it. Nothing to do with love. More ruins and more ruins, and these ruins tell us about the sad history of one conquers and ruins and the other one conquers and ruins. So we have Salah ad-Din here, who kicked the Crusaders away, and then the Crusaders came back. This gentleman down below with a crown, he is supposed to be Richard Lionheart. So Richard Lionheart kicked Salah ad-Din away, but then later we have Bibles who came and kicked the Crusaders away again, and that was the end of the story of Ashkelon, because Bibles, the ruler of the Mamluks, who arrived in mid-13th century, he always wanted to be on the safe side. I mean, you take over a place, and then you want to make sure that your enemies will never come back. How do you do that? You just ruin it completely. So Bibles ruined the entire series, the entire chain of fortified cities along the coast, because he was afraid of another crusade which will arrive and take over the fortified cities and the citadels. So to be on the safe side, he just left nothing behind. And that was the end of Ashkelon for hundreds of years in a row. Okay, let's take another look at this bush and savanna. 150 acres of the Canaanite period fortified city, and now we are facing this white modern condos of modern Ashkelon. We imagine the Canaanites and the Babylonians, and then the Hasmoneans, and then we have the Romans, and then we have the Byzantines, and then we have the Persians, and then we have the Muslims, and then we have the Crusaders, and then we have more Muslims, more Crusaders, more Muslims, and that's it. And then we move from past to present to modern white city of Ashkelon. And well, that was the end of Muslim Ashkelon. I mean, Ashkelon was abandoned for hundreds of years. It was restored by the Ottomans, and Ashkelon became known as Majdal. What is Majdal? We have a few places in Israel called Majdal. We used to have more places called Majdal. Majdal is same as Migdal in Hebrew, and Migdal means a tower. So wherever you have a tall structure, ruined, partly ruined, so it will be a Majdal. So here you did see ruins, which probably gave it their name to this city, which was re-established by the Ottomans by the name of Majdal. So an Arab town of Majdal existed till 1948, and in 1948, what you see in front of you are the last Muslim Arabs who used to live in Ashkelon on their way to Gaza. That's the end of the independence war. A small fraction of the Muslim population remained till 1950, and in 1950 they were forced to leave Ashkelon, and Ashkelon was renamed into Ashkelon. I mean, it was Ashkelon and then Majdal, and starting from 1950, Ashkelon again. And we started it all over again as a purely Jewish and modern town. So the only remain of this Majdal of pre-1948 is this mosque. Now, you can obviously see that this is a mosque, but it's not a functioning one because there are no Muslims left. So the structure is a city museum today. One of the first neighborhoods which were built in modern Jewish Ashkelon was called Afridar. Afridar, because it was populated by Jewish immigrants from North Africa. So Afri, Africa, and Dar in Hebrew means leaves. So those leaving from Africa. One of the first neighborhoods of modern Ashkelon. And inside there, we have this beautiful place called the Garden of Sarcophagi, which means the stone-made coffins. And there are some really beautiful ancient coffins on display. I hope you can see the beauty of the decoration. I mean, this is the story of Persephone or Proserpina being kidnapped by Hades, the god of the underworld. Anyway, one of the better known Greek mythological stories. So another remaining beauty of the past. And this is something very modern. Actually, it is so modern that it even looks sort of future oriented. And this is the Academic College of Ashkelon, which has some structures which looks like UFO. I don't know. Anyway, a very nice place to study in. So thank you very much for joining me. We are back on the beach. I hope you are convinced that this place is fascinating and beautiful. And yeah, the beach is the best part. It's always like that. So
thank you so much, Julia. I can safely say I knew none of this, and then I'm probably going to watch this again just because I think I missed a little bit of it. But what's interesting is that the very first comment you said most of us probably haven't been to Ashkelon is Anita Steiner wrote she lived in Ashkelon for over 40 years. So she may have something to say eventually after we answer some questions. But thank you so much for such an
I can see now the first comment. Anita, so you lived in Ashkelon for over 40 years. Okay, so what do you think of what I said about Ashkelon?
Feel free to unmute.
Yeah, sure.
Is Anita here still? Oh, there you are, Anita.
I thought it was a wonderful place to bring up children. My daughter is also on this Zoom.
Oh.
But,
okay, so
and,
all right. I have a lot to say.
Anita, where are you now?
Anita,
where are you now?
yes.
She is asking where you are now.
I moved to Ramat Gan.
Ah, okay. So you now live in Ramat Gan. I see. Okay, great. So we are in the same time zone. Okay, and Nora said that in early 60s she went to Ulpan in Ashkelon, right? Because she lived in Ashdod, but back then there were no schools and nothing. Yeah, because Ashdod developed later. Okay. So then Harry, for more details, or Samson Riddle. Okay, of course. Yeah. Okay. I disagree regarding the olive trees. Anita said, because they are on major streets, it wasn't possible to eat the olives, perhaps due to the exhaust of cars and buses. I wasn't worth harvesting the olives in order to cure them. I don't know. Well, I would harvest and wash, but okay. Anyway,
No,
I don't know.
you couldn't. I tried several times and I had permission from the area, the city hall, to pick the olives and to harvest them, to do the masik. But you could tell by looking at them that they were unedible, and you couldn't, it wasn't worth picking them. Because they got, by the environment, I think from the exhaust, and there could be other ideas. It's not a scientific answer, but and it's a pity.
Wow, it is a pity. I did not know that. I mean, they look perfectly healthy and tasty. Okay, well, so I was not. Okay, agreed. Gail wrote, adobe is the Spanish name that we call the mud bricks.
Adobe. Yeah.
Okay, I never heard of. Right, Atlas. Oh, good. Okay. Please consider making a donation.
That's me.
I know. Thank you. Okay, so since Atlantis tried a spherical world, the ancients?
Ancients.
Oh yeah, well, of course. Oh my God. No, it was spelled with a capital A. So ancient knew the word was round long before Galileo. Yes, of course. The ancient times knew that the world is round. I mean, there is a difference between knowing something because it is proved, because Galilei saw the sky, and later Magellan actually circled the world and he came back. So, there's a difference between the scientific knowledge, something which is proven, and a philosophical idea. I mean, the idea of the world being round is much, much older than the scientific proof. I mean, ancient Egyptians assumed that the world is round, but it was proved much later. Okay, what about the pillars that stick out of the wall on the coast? Rochelle, that was a direct message for me. So the pillars that stick out of the walls on the coast, these are the pillars which belong to Roman structures. We don't know exactly which structure that was, but it's a Roman period pillars, which were much later used by the Crusaders. This is something which is very, very typical. You have ruins, and then you just utilize parts of these ruins for your needs. One of the examples is in Akko. There's a huge structure from the Ottoman period, which is called Khan al-Umdan, with some huge, beautiful granite pillars, which were brought by the Ottoman ruler all the way from, by the way, Ashkelon, and some was brought from Caesarea to Akko. So anyway, it's very typical. You have ruins, you don't need them, so you just use parts. It was South Africa. I'm not sure what was South Africa. As several streets in Afridal were the road from Africa, etc. Right. I mean, Afridal was populated both by, well, maybe South Africa. I know people from Morocco, Tunis, who populated Afridal. But anyway, it was made for the African Jewish.
Afridal was based on streets and all kinds of things in South Africa. That's Kapstad and all kinds of things from South Africa. And
okay. All right. Well, thanks. Great. Harry wrote something which, Harry, what did you mean
is
by
that?
all these dots?
Maybe he fell asleep on the computer. I think he fell asleep and he pushed Harry's going, no, no, no. Let's just skip that one.
Yeah, we skipped that one. Okay.
Best comment, Harry. You win best comment.
Oh my God. And you wrote that you'll be on a kibbutz in Ashkelon in mid-February. What do you mean by a kibbutz in Ashkelon? Probably near.
Yeah, I have a friend that lives on a kibbutz, and I'm going to spend all of February on her kibbutz with her.
What's the name of the kibbutz?
I think it's Kvar Am.
Gvaram. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So again, Gvaram is within the gas envelope. And yeah, you should go to the beach in either Zikim or Ashkelon.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So give me a call when you're there.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody has any connections in Israel? I would love them.
Okay. Harry asks, does Ashkelon have any modern industry? Yes, of course. There's a large industrial zone with everything to it. I mean, I don't have specific examples, but it's a major, big industrial zone, which is right by the power plant. And yeah, I mean, I'm not specific enough. But I know that there is a big industrial zone. Okay, great. We're out of questions. Yeah, so you're welcome to unmute yourself, and thank you for your responses and your support and your presence and everything.
Thank you.
And next week there is a schmooze.
Yeah.
And the week after that, I mean 2 weeks from now, it was supposed to be the presentation by Shuki.
Yeah.
About Yom Kippur War, but he had some I don't know, unpredictable circumstances. So no,
Oh.
he will make his presentation, but it will not be in 2 weeks from now.
Oh.
It will be months from now. So
could you send me that, because I've already put it all together to send out an email, so it's good.
No, it's oh my gosh, I'm not sure if I informed you or not, because now with all this work, he just called me a couple of days ago.
Okay.
I'm not sure. 2 weeks from now, it will be Sharona's presentation on a totally different topic. Instead of Yom Kippur War, we will be talking about the plans of the Bible.
Right.
Okay.
So in 2 weeks, it's Sharona.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you could just send me an email with just the new order of things.
Right. It's the only change, but I will send you an email.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure, since I'm trying to get it all done. And then also, we had scheduled a schmooze during Thanksgiving, but we're just going to not do that. So everyone can just enjoy their food per Larry's request. Just kidding.
Let's have Thanksgiving. Okay. What's the Thanksgiving date?
The 24th, right?
Okay, 24.
Correct.
Right. Which is Thursday. Right. Mm-hmm.
Right?
November 24th.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you will, 2 weeks from now, November 17th, that's the presentation about the plans of the Bible. Some of them you can eat. And then week later, you will have the Thanksgiving and you will be eating plants.
Okay. Then we're skipping. And then after that, then a week after that is a schmooze.
No, the week after that are going to be December 1st. That will be Shuki's presentation about, the war.
All right, I'll take a look at what I've done. Thank you,
Okay,
Julia.
I will resend it.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you. I'm just glad you let me know.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you so much for setting all of this up.
Thank you all, and please be back. And tomorrow I'm going with the VFI archaeology to Herodian. I mean, there was a presentation about Herodian, but tomorrow it's going to be a real one.
Yeah.
And we'll be in the old city, visiting the 4 Sephardic synagogues. And
how's the group, Julia? I know you have a Reli on there. She's an Israeli. She was in the army. She's very Israeli. How's it going?
She's very active in Zionist, and she, she speaks Hebrew, and she's actually she seems like she's looking for a way to come back. She was talking to me about maybe studying something here, maybe a course. Yeah, I mean, she seemed to be. Yeah, she wants to stay longer.
Yeah, it seems like a good group overall, though. I've spoken to all of them so often, and they're just so you know, I'm getting a lot of messages from them saying how much they're enjoying the touring and touring with you and everything. So just so you know, I'm hearing it too.
So you're informed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, and guys, it is so much better touring in reality. I mean, there's nothing like reality. You should come over. And Ilana, are you still coming?
I will be coming in January. I just don't know what the dates are. But I will, as far as I know, be in Tel Aviv and Jordan. So I don't know, but I will let you know as soon as I know anything. I don't even know enough to get someone to sit for my cat at this point. I don't know the dates, but I'll let you know. I promise, so I can see you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much, and Lila Tov to you.
Lila Tov.
Hi,
Bye.
Julia.
Wow.
Bye.
Does anybody want me to put a note for you in the wall?
Oh, that's so nice.
Here.
Would anyone like a note in the wall?
Okay, so we'll just place a general one, wishing you health and wealth and prosperity.
If you can put one
Thank
for
you.
me, Julia, wishing health for my dad, that would be wonderful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, definitely. What's his name?
Paul, we go by I think Shaul in Hebrew. He doesn't really have a Hebrew name. Paul.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
Thank you, Julia.
Sure, I will. Be well. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent program.
If anyone wants to stay, we'll be schmoozing now, or changing to schmooze mode, as Steve usually says.